How does one run a wood stove?
How does one run a wood stove properly and safely and efficiently? Three things here, okay? So, safety first. You know, if you're dealing with fire inside, be safe. Don't be careless, and don't be unwise. Try to watch my mouth. So, this is a schematic of a wood stove drawing. I just instinctively did the one that we used to sell, the cylinder stove. See, it's a long profile. This thing was 28 inches long, 18 inches wide, and 13 inches deep. Okay, so it's a long profile. So, one of the first things you're going to do is you have, preferably have the stove sitting on something. It's up on legs, so it's not heat is not a problem. Fire is not a problem that way. But you definitely want to have this big tray here, just in case you have something like that around, a big piece of sheet metal to set it on. Okay, so something to have it on would be nice, just general protect, but definitely out in front of it where the door is. You want to have something like a big steel platter, big steel plate, or a sheet of metal, or a fireproof blanket. And a lot of these camp stoves come with a fireproof blanket. Like this is a fiberglass sheeting here, and that's what I'm going to use to insulate the stovepipe. But that could be laid out. Something that if you open it up and sparks come out, or a piece of wood, a lot of times a cinder will fall out when you're doing something. A coal to fire, hailstone, coals to fire. No, a coal fire come out. You don't want it to hit the floor and light something on fire. Second, don't have anything near it that's flammable. What a fire marshal would call a fire load. Don't have fire loads right by any place where you can have a fire. Not near your stove. Because a lot of times there's kitchen fires in the kitchen. Okay, that's not good. I'll just give a real quick example of this. This is on the family's video camera. Okay, you see it's like black and white security camera. Okay, little girl comes bouncing into the kitchen and sees flames coming out of their air fryer. Her dad had just made her something, tortillas or burritos or something like that. So there's a lot of grease in it, lit on fire, and says, "Oh, Dad's going to kill me," like it's her fault. She goes, "Daddy, come here real quick." And she's doing this, and they said she's always making stories up and waving her hands around. And her dad comes in and he goes, "Oh shit," And so he grabs the air fryer. Oh, he looks at first for a fire extinguisher. He can't find it. Have a fire extinguisher where you know it's at. And speaking of that, sponsor for our video here is fire blankets. Now, I first heard about these. You see advertising from all the time on YouTube and Facebook and TikTok. Okay, they call it Prepared Hero. Well, they're like $40, $50 a piece. I don't know. Originally, they're selling for quite a bit. So I always look at them. I go to the website and check their price, and then I go to Amazon and check the price. So I kept looking, and I found 4 of them for $18. Okay, less than $5 a piece. Then I found this one. Now the thing about this one, I really like this one, is has a whistle. Okay, inside I put them in here. I might take them out, but there's a pair of gloves. They're fireproof gloves, very handy to have. The reason I mentioned that, and the reason I mentioned this guy in the video, is because he looked for a fire extinguisher. He looked for something like this. This would you just pull this out, 2 handles here, right? You just pop this Velcro up. You rip on this. Just pop it open. Like these are 2 handles, so if it comes out with handles, you throw it over the fire and you tuck it down, and you can carry the thing out once it cools down. It's out. The fire is out no matter what it's on the stove. Is out in like 3 seconds, 5 seconds max. Okay, you don't have to put. And if you use a fire extinguisher, you're gonna get your stove all grimy and the wall. You can spray everything. There's a little mess to clean up, grody mess to clean up. So these are very efficient. Inside's a pair of gloves, and the reason I mentioned a pair of gloves is the reason I love this one is because if you see the fire, you grab this thing off the wall. The first thing you do is do it. That means fire, or whatever. You have if somebody hears that in your family, they're gonna know there's a fire. Get out of the house. So the guy looked around for a fire extinguisher, could not find it. So he walked over and bare hands, bare feet, came out of the bedroom. Oh, he's taking a bath or something. What was he doing? It doesn't make a difference. He was shaking a shower or something. I don't know. He runs and he grabs the thing with his hands, bare hands, burns his feet, melts his feet because the thing's dripping plastic. You can see flaming fire dropping out as he's walking out. They didn't happen to catch anything on fire. They did not have a fire load in the sense of having something that's flammable on the floor, like carpet that's flammable. A lot of synthetics are very flammable. Okay, that's another thing to be aware of. You sit around a campfire and your sweater is acrylic or something, and that's a fuel. It's made out of petroleum product, and it'll light up. Okay. Wear wool. Here's a safety thing too. Now this probably is not true anymore because you have carburetors back then. Now you have fuel injected, and I don't think it would happen. But you fill your truck up on a night before or something with cold fuel, or that morning with cold fuel. You fill the truck up, and it's a hot day out. The fuel in the tank is hot. Is in their tank, and the ground is cold. Put it in your vehicle. It's hot. It's hot. It's heated up, and you have a locking gas cap on. Where is it going to relieve the pressure up through the carburetor twice? So one time, I found I was there in a pickup truck was on fire. The engine was on fire, and another sponsor, aerosol. I had an aerosol flame stop, and I put it with that. Then the second time I saw a fire, truck fire, Ford. Both times were Fords. Never a Chevy, never a Dodge, never a Isuzu, never a Nissan or Toyota. But anyway, Ford engine fire. Second one, this guy took out a military blanket, put it out. That was like this. It was because wool is fireproof. Have wool around. Have a wool blanket. Don't have synthetic crap. Do not have synthetic stuff. You know. So this is a wood stove. You have something out front here to definitely keep the, if you have a coal falling out. So you want to have your fire prevention stuff. Get an ash bucket. You can have. Should have one of the buckets in here. Oh, when is this? This is an ash bucket. Could be. This is galvanized. You don't want to use this. They make black ones. Although this might last longer. Although it might put off a little bit of gases. But the thing about this is that these come with a lid, and I really like them. They're 6-gallon. I got them because I wanted something about that size to put sand in. We're going to get to that a little bit later. That's the next topic of conversation, or one of the next topics of conversation. So the lid is very cool. It sits on there, and then you raise your handle up, and it locks it in place. So the lid's locked down. So here's my point: is you put wood ashes, you clean your stove out, you got to clean it out right. You put it in a bucket like this. You put the lid on. Boom! You have a charcoal in there. Everything in there that didn't burn is going to go out, and you're going to have charcoal for the next fire. You can sift it out. I did that a lot. Now, here's what you don't want to do. Safety feature. 5-gallon plastic bucket. When my son was living over in the trailer on the south end of this property, he had a wood stove in there, and he had fire in there, and he told his 2 younger brothers, David and Isaac, to clean it out. They had to get a plastic bucket, put it in there, and set it out on the porch. What happened? Coals went through the bucket, went through the whole porch, the 2x4 layered porch, and nice big 5-inch hole right through the thing. And knowing that was lit, that was lighting up, it lit up enough to, there's an open flame at one point. Had to be an open flame at one point. And there could have been dry grass and dried weeds in there, because they burned through, dropped down, boom, you had a fire going. If you have a wood stove, get a bucket like this. I don't care if it's a steel bucket or something, but a little pail, water pail. At least get that and use that and get it outside. Get it outside immediately. And for the last 8 years or so, I've lived near a friend, Bill, and he has a wood stove, and he's burned a wood stove since Alaska. I mean, since his entire life. He grew up as a hillbilly, been wood stove his whole life. What he would do, he would have just an open bucket. But he would take it and put it out and put a cast iron skillet on top of it, like a pancake flat skillet. Put it on top of that to put the fire out, and then we'd dump it out in the garden. So that's one way to do it. But get a steel bucket preferably, and don't use plastic. And another guy put his ashes out if he hadn't burned a stove for like 3 days, and he threw the ashes out in his compost thing, his entire porch was lit on fire, and just about burned the house. And the only thing that saved him was he wasn't even around. He was in the back or something, I don't know, but it was just to the point where it burned the whole porch off, and the front of the wall, it melted the vinyl siding on the wall. But a neighbor was driving by and said, "Hey, you had a fire going." "Oh, thanks." And she used it to put it out with the hose. But it was the porch was burned up so bad, destroyed. Insurance company came out really good on it, so no big deal. But don't put, find if there are ashes, find if there's anything hot in there. You want to have a way to put your fire out. Get your fire out of the house. Get up. So Bill would just put an open bucket, let it burn out. You can just sit them out there in the cold, it'll burn out. It's not going to go anywhere. and then you dump it out after you do that, and you bring it back in, or have 2 or 3 buckets. You had 2 or 3 of them. So, okay, now how to start it? So how to start a fire? Top lit up draft. TLUD. T-led. Top lit up draft. TLUD. Beat that in your head. Burn that into your brain. Write it on your forehead. Memorize it. Okay, so what I have schematic here is this is a normal stove box, like a shorter and squatter. Like this is a cylinder stove. So this is not really easy to do, and it's what I'm going to say to do is a cylinder stove. But this round, this is where the stove pipe comes up. This goes up out of the ceiling or out the window, right? That's your exhaust stack. So most people start a fire over here, right? That is a big bag. No, do not start your fire over here. This is looking at it from the top down. Start your fire back here under this, under your stove stack. And you can find a video on YouTube that tells you how to do that. Now this one would be a little, I wouldn't do it here because it's, what I usually do is hide the lights up and throw it in there. You don't have to reach in there. Ball up paper and throw it back in there, a little piece, another piece, and another piece. So that the heat immediately goes up here. Otherwise, by the door it's going to be leaking out, and people start firing them. So the top lit updraft. Okay, let me say this. I also call it the fire and forget, and it's top lit updraft. Call it upside down fire. Okay. Build your fire upside down. A UD fire or a TLUD. T-L-U-D. Top lit updraft. Or upside down. What you do is your first layer of wood is your big stuff. You're looking at, we just built a fire out in a barrel, and I put 3 pieces, as big as I could get in there, and I found a really big piece and put it in the middle. I figure it'll still be burning tomorrow morning. Then you come crosswise and you put smaller pieces, like this is 5 inch, 4 or 5 inch, 3 inch this way, like Lincoln logging. And then your next stack is smaller yet, coming this way, more of them. And then another stack, twin kindling. Now you've done the kindling stuff. Then you stuff something on the top of it, like we used a grocery bag full of trash, just fun because I love using plastic stuff because it drips. It's going to be burned up here, and when you light it at the top, your draft's going up right away, and it creates its own chimney in essence. So that's a good way to do it. It's the only way to do it. I'll harp on it. Every time I start a fire, I'll do it. I've done videos of my cylinder stove, and Bill's stove, and John had 2 different kinds of stoves at his place. He had a Lopi, L-O-P-I. Yeah. Anyway, he had a big. It was an fireplace insert. It was a phenomenal thing. Really well built. It was phenomenally efficient. And then the other end, you had a side loader, a big, huge, long stove, more like a cylinder stove. I did top load updraft in all of those, and they worked in every single stove. Build your top load updraft. Warm the stack up. I don't care if you have to get a propane torch and just heat the stack up itself. That's one way to do it. Get heat into it, and then you have an efficient burn. It's drawing air in through here and through your damper on your stove at the front of this one. This will be in the front. Stacks back here, and works really well.
In terms of a rocket stove, how does that work, and what are the principles that are working with a rocket stove?
Okay. In the last video I mentioned about the Yanto Evans accidentally kind of building a rocket stove, right? 50 gallon drum, and instead of, most of them have a door here, your stacks back here coming out of the stove at the top here, right? Well, they cut a hole in this end. They meant to go one hole in this end, but they didn't. They cut 2 holes in this end. I don't know how they could be that drunk, but to not see the hole they just cut in. I mean, they were drunk. I don't know what they did, but anyway. So they put a wood pipe, stove pipe on this one. They cut it to fit, and they started throwing wood, lit fire down, dropped down there, and started putting wood in this one. It worked great. This stack got going. They started sucking air in, and they saw it worked really efficiently. So that was like an accidental wood stove, cylinder rocket stove. Okay. Now I talked about Larry Winniowski, right? Now here is something that is basic principles of a rocket stove. Why does a rocket stove? Why is it? I mean, at first, why do people call it a rocket stove? Okay, I'm going to start there because that's one of the most important things to get across. And I have seen people cobble a bunch of stuff together and call it a rocket stove, and I'm like, no, that's just a Rube Goldberg gizmo that's not going to do anything. You got to have a draft. You got to draw. So one of the principles is your stack, your exhaust port has to be hot. It has to stay hot. Okay. Now, this is, you're looking at the rocket stove from the top. Okay. It's called a plan view. This is your, that's my barrel. This is your front view, and this is your side view. This is from the side. So I'll explain this. From the top, it looks like that. And the hole that you're burning, your flames are in, the chimney is only about, it's not very big. I'm going to say 4 or 5 inches maximum. Because what this is all insulation. Ceramic insulation. It could be sand. Oh. That's what we're building here. I mean, this is cool. I love learning stuff and coming up with something new. This is going to be a sand battery, and we'll go into that later. Polar night. Okay, so this is insulation, ceramic generally. And this just shows a rack for where you put your wood on. So over from this side, from the side view, here's your exhaust port. Your thing is coming in this way. Your field, this is a door, and this is a steel, just a frame rack. You put your, you could probably put like a 2 foot long piece of wood and just feed it in as it burns. Now, this is from the top. That's your rack. This is from the front. Look at it. So this, you're gonna have a place to clean out your ashes and a damper, and then this is your fuel intake area, and this is your rack. So you got that all. Any questions there? So the reason this is ceramic or sand or something is that you want insulation. You want something to maintain the heat, retain the heat in there. Okay. And that amazes me. I mean, I came up with this thing. I've been working on this thing for 11 years. 2013 it was the first time 2010. I built one in Oklahoma. My son and I, Isaac, went to Tabernacles, and I had the pipe with me. We dug a trench, put the pipe in, covered it up, lit it up, and cooked our Denny Moore beef stew in less than an hour, right about an hour, from start to finish. I timed it. Okay, that worked great. Oklahoma, sandy dirt, easy to dig. Missouri, not going to happen. Not in a day or two of digging, unless you have a trencher or something to dig it with, rock and everything else. So the second one we built was down below at the house here. I'd like to excavate it. I'd like to do an archaeological dig down there and excavate it. And this is a very interesting time because at least 3 of my grandchildren helped me with the operation. Maybe 4, I don't know. I don't remember. I know that Rebecca, who was my dome gnome, Rebecca, I love you. One time she walked in and I burst out with, "Oh, my favorite grandchild." She goes, "Mom, your favorite?" I said, don't repeat that. Don't let anybody hear that. I don't have any favorites. But she'd helped me so much. She was like my right hand man, And she was my dome. We called her my dome gnome because I was putting up a geodesic dome and everything. She helped me with. You helped me also with the teepee. You remember that?
Yep, I do.
I have to apologize. I apologize for I was very wrought, very wired, and very stressed out, and I was trying to get it done. You were in a, I'd say go pick that up, and you'd pick up the wrong thing, and I feel terrible about that. I'm meaning to apologize to you, Sonny. I'm sorry. So a teepee, a geodesic dome, a yurt. You could have the floor. My floor system we're going to go into next. Heating system in the ground. You can have anywhere from a ton to 6 tons of thermal mass. What a rocket stove does, it stores thermal mass. Now in this configuration here, this is just for cooking. This is designed for cooking only. It's insulated really well. It does not does not radiate any heat. It puts out a hell of a lot of heat at the top. You could get heat out of that and heat a whole building with it, but it's generally designed for cooking in third world countries. That's what it is. I have one somewhere. I don't know. It's all fallen, rusted apart. A friend of mine bought one made of stainless steel, and that's the way to go. Silver fire is what it was called. Anyway, so this is insulated, so it gets hot, very, very hot. The ceramic doesn't. You can put your hand on the outside, and it's not going to burn you because it's not hot. So then you go to the idea of what do you do? You know, isn't there a way to store that heat? You know, 'cause if it burns very efficiently, let's go to just drop on the idea of a thermal mass heater. THM TMH thermal mass heater. Okay, that's what typically a rocket stove. Most people, when I heard about them, everybody was doing cob houses and building a rocket stove in it and putting in a cob bench or bed. Okay, and here we're going to get into the Korean and Chinese and Russian ideas and old Roman ideas. Okay, but anyway, my point is this: that let me get a drink of water. Tracking.
Mm-hmm.
So thermal mass. How do you store the heat? What kind of mass do you need? Here's something I just figured out about a week ago. Cob. You build a cob house. We lived in a cob house for 1 year. Our first year here, we lived in a cob house. It did not have a rocket stove. It had an old typical stove. It did have catalytic converters, but it had an old normal stove in it where you put wood in the door and the heat goes up the stack. But nice thing about a cob house is you spill coal on the floor. You can build a fire on the floor. It's not going to burn because it's cob, it's dirt, and cob stores heat very well, or cold. But we moved in November, and it took 1 month for the house to heat up, to warm it up. Okay, so a month. Got that? And so it once it was warmed up, it would radiate heat. It holds the heat very well through the winter. Same idea as a sand battery. But when studying this recently, I come back to my idea of a rocket stove, and we're going to do one in a bucket here. 6-gallon rocket stove sand battery. So how do you store the heat? Sand is one of the best things in the world for storing heat. Water's 5 times better than anything else, but sand, you can't light sand on fire. You can't melt sand unless you get really hot, like 1,000, 1,200 degrees, something like that. And water, you heat that up, and once you get past boiling temperature, you're steaming it. You're losing your water, or you're going to have an explosion, which is not another safety thing you don't want to do. You don't want to blow your house up with a steam explosion. That's very deadly. Steam explosion in Cleveland, Ohio, at a steam tractor festival blew up. Boiler blew. 11 people were dead. Instantly just flashed off. Lungs gone, eyes gone, hair gone, clothes gone. Boom. Just vaporized. Not good. So don't blow up something. Don't put something hot. Don't put water in a closed container on a fire. Bunny trail. Rocket. So thermal mass. Okay. So thermal mass. How do you store heat and then radiate it out slowly? Sand is very good. And just recently, I got to thinking about it. I realized I love learning stuff. Especially when somebody else tells me. I love that even more. It's neat to figure something for me to figure stuff out myself. When somebody has listened to I'm just thinking of a case where this friend of mine knew enough about what I was thinking about, that I'd been teaching, and when I came up with whole other angle of it, like the Earth being grounded, I said, well, there's more tornadoes here than anywhere else in the world. He said, well, I said the craton is 120 miles deep, thick. He goes, well, you've always said that this area is well grounded. I'm like, that blew me away that he'd remembered, the fact of being grounded, and that the craton goes down right to the magma, right down to the magma level. Whereas, it's very 120 miles between where we are in the Ozark Plateau and the entire craton. 120 miles between you and molten lava. Not going to have too many volcanoes. West of the Rocky Continental Divide, there's 1,000 volcanoes ready to blow. the whole ring of fire, whole new continent being born in Hawaii. Anyway, bunny trail. So I'm catching myself, see, I'm going to shoot that bunny. Shoot that bunny. No. Okay, so thermal mass. Sand is very, very good. It's good because it can't melt, won't burn, stores heat superbly well. But what is cob? I figured this out about 2 days ago. You know what cob is?
No, I'm not familiar with it.
Clay, sand, and straw. When you're mixing cob, you let it win. I worked hod carrier for a bricklayer, and then I worked hod carrier for a stonemason. 8 shovels of sand and 2 shovels of clay, or 2 shovels of cement. So you're in Portland or mortar or whatever. It's generally an 8 to 2 mix. So cob is 80% sand. Why does it store heat so well? It's 80% sand. Okay, let me ask you this: why not just use sand? These people they go through all this hassle, this time, and it's nice because it's fun. And mixing cob is very therapeutic. Let me touch on that for a minute because you're mixing clay, sand, and straw, right? Well, one way to do it is that in fact, the cob house that we lived in was built on 5 foot by 7 foot tarps. They dug out a little place in the ground. It was kind of a little trench, like a little shallow area, 3 foot by 4 foot. Lay the tarp in there. Put sand, 8 shovels of sand, 2 shovels of clay. Roll it back. Go like that was your concrete mix. Was 2 people going like this up and down. Rolling it back and forth. Mixed. Lay it back down in the hole. Start sprinkling water on it, dancing around, and adding straw. Somebody to chop up straw and throwing straw in it. So clay, sand, and straw. But it's so therapeutic because clay is very detoxing. One of the best things you can do is bend like clay and use these patches of clay on your feet, or drink it, or put it on your eyes. That's why they do clay masks, because it's detoxing. It takes out toxins through your skin. So clay house is a very cool thing to build. It's if you do it by hand. And one guy got way overboard. He uses his backhoe. He dug a big hole in the ground, and 8 scoops of this and 8 bucket loads of this, 8 bucket loads of 2 bucket loads of that, and just drag back and forth. Ian helped him build that house. That thing is like a mansion. It's like a ski lodge size, big, huge two-story thing. Very cool. Anyway, bunny trail. Thermal mass, my ass. So sand is an excellent storer of thermal mass. So when I saw that idea, I just happened to, and a friend of mine had mentioned that James had mentioned that sand is really good. And I'm like, water's 5 times better than everything else. That's what I had figured out. Water's 5 times better than everything else. No, not 5 times better than sand, because water will blow up. It'll explode. It'll evaporate. When I built my rocket stove in Bill's greenhouse, it was a full 61 brick, full bore, actual genuine rocket stove, thermal mass, all in the yard, burn chamber, and everything else. We'll go into that next time. But we had 4 steel barrels of water, 50-gallon drums, but on top of where the vent was going out. When you have a rocket stove, you have a we'll draw it out sometime. Get up on that thermal mass. So sand is a good. Let's leave it there. Sand is a good thermal mass. We'll come back to the whole thing later. The rocket mass heater. So most people are using cob. So we need to think outside the box. This is so critical. This is one of my primary, probably I think my number 1 rule or law, or what I call directives. Okay, what's the directive? What's the prime directive of Star Trek? Don't mess with any intelligent civilization. Don't mess with them. You don't try to affect their civilization. That's a prime directive. So that's like a law that they live by. Well, my directives for the Ozark Plateau, the first one is think TOTB. Think outside the box. TOTB. If we can't think outside the box, we're going to be in trouble. You gotta have the idea, the vision to see something different, You don't have to live in a stick house. It's so stupid. People around the world are like, Americans are so dumb, they live in houses built with wood. That's retarded, We live in houses built with concrete. Every country in the world, I see, China, Russia, South America, they all have different colors. You can get these pallet loads of not aircrete, but autoclave concrete. They're light, big, huge block. You pick up a block of concrete this big, You can put the house is all marked out. You can put a house together in like 2 days. Concrete blocks, the lighting, turn the light bulb on, and the whole house is warm because it retains all the heat. Total. Every wall is insulated. Guess what? It's fireproof. It's bulletproof. Windproof. Very strong, very stable blocks, about 8 wide. So I had a tablet. I had like 1,000 screenshots on there. I was so enamored. Ones from China were yellow colored. Ones from Russia were red colored pallets, and the other one down south were blue colored pallets, and probably they're a green one too. You can't buy them in America. I mean, you can't. Maybe you could. There's one company called Cresco who made castellated, interlocking aircrete blocks. And one time on eBay there was a whole set of everything was there. The molds, they were kind of worn out there, and they had everything you need. There was about $10,000. I tried to get somebody around here to buy them. It would have been we could have built 1,000 homes with them molds. Fireproof, bulletproof, windproof, everything. So, earthquake proof, and weather else proof, windproof. So, okay. You got any questions?
Do we want to pause it there?
Huh?
Do we want to pause it there?
Yeah.
Has been